Dear Agony Aunties, I'm in my mid-30s and feel constantly overwhelmed by all the big decisions I'm supposed to be making, especially around having children. It seems like everyone else has it figured out, and I'm stuck in this anxious loop of, am I running out of time? How do I deal with the pressure of choosing a path when I'm still not sure what I really want?
That is a very common question, I would think. And I think there's this very false narrative that life is this straight stairway. And I think maybe as a child, influenced by what your parents did or what you've seen around you, you've sort of set yourself a target, even at the age of 10, like I want to be married by the time I'm this age and I want to have a child by the time I'm that age. But actually, that doesn't in any way account for who you are and the life you're living and your experiences. And then there's that terrible thing of comparing your insides with everybody else's outsides, that, your best friend gets married and you can spend a whole summer going to hen dos and you feel like you're left behind. And that just isn't the case. Life doesn't work like that. It isn't just this direct stairway to success. Life is full of ups and downs. And what's important is kind of tuning in and being aware of yourself and your needs and where you're at in your life now and meeting where you're at now.
I remember being a child, actually, probably much older than a child, almost an adult, and suddenly having this realization that my life wasn't going to be exactly like your life. And it took me a really long time. Like, I just assumed that that's what was going to happen, that I was going to get married really young, have children. And I had this sort of thought of oh, no, that doesn't happen automatically. You have to sort of make decisions and choose things. Some things are decisions that you do not have to make, right? There are things in life that you can sort of work towards and hope that they happen and you can be not sure about and just kind of wait to evolve. I think if you're a woman and you want children and you want to be pregnant yourself, there is also a real time boundary that is real, and that there's no sort of way around it if you want to carry your own child. Obviously, there are many ways of having a family, and I wonder if, to take the pressure off yourself about I have to make this decision whether I want a child or not, it's helpful to sort of broaden your conceptualization of what a family looks like, because you obviously don't want to have a child just because you felt oh gosh, I better have one in case I decide that later on that I wanted one. Plus, obviously, it's not that easy just to suddenly be pregnant. So I think if you can broaden your horizons of what family might mean to you, then it might take the pressure off I've got to make all these decisions right now, these really big decisions about if I want a child or not. And that might help you actually give you more space to work out what you want, because you're not feeling backed into a corner of having to decide really soon.
Yeah, I think that thing of trying to decide under pressure is really a very helpful cocktail. And I think sort of curiosity, I find a really useful word, because it's a softer, more interesting. What do I actually feel about this? Rather than I need to know.
And I need an answer.
And I need an answer. I do also think that it's quite just human and existential making choices. Just by making a choice, you often inherently shut down a bunch of other choices. And there is an anxiety in that is very normal and very human. And I guess the reason I'm saying that is sometimes if we recognize it as an existential thing about life, is that we have to make some choices and we don't know whether or not they're going to work out in the way that we want them to, or whether we definitely do want them. And they shut down possibly some other options, or at least temporarily do. That the answer to not make any choices is not usually the best way to navigate that. It's more about tolerating the anxiety of not knowing and living anyway, rather than holding off from making any decisions in your life about anything. I also
the thing Dad says, isn't it? It's better to do something than what he says.
Yes, he says that he's found in his life that he regrets what he hasn't done rather than the things that he has done.
I think it's very hard when you don't feel like though. When you have.
Well, that was the other thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you said you're sort of overwhelmed by all the big decisions you have to make. So I think firstly, like, work out what are the decisions, like,
Do you
do I
have to
have to make some of these decisions may not be decisions you have to make. They may just be like you can continue living your life, because sometimes there are really big decisions that do have to be made. And when that's been true for me, like I've had to make a really big decision and it's a fairly binary decision, like there isn't a sort of nuance, like it's either this thing or that thing. The only thing that helps me is knowing that whatever decision you make is the best decision that you could do in that moment with the information that you had. And so almost like give yourself forward thinking self-compassion of like, I am making this decision and it's the best decision I can make right now because I have to make a decision about this thing and I'm not sure and I will never be sure because I will never know the sliding doors alternative, but I can be sure that this is the best decision I can make right now because I have to make a decision.
That's definitely a phrase I use for myself. And it's back also to Mum's thing. So there might be a right way.
I've had quite a few clients that have come to me in their kind of mid to late 30s who've said, I slept through my 20s and 30s. And then I suddenly woke up and thought, oh my God, I'm now 38 and my kind of options for having children are narrow. So part of what my response to your question is, it's good that you've woken up with this question because it's an alert system that's saying, hold on, I really need to pay attention and think about, as Emily and Sophie are saying, what are my priorities? What do I really care about? And once you know what they are, you can begin to think about and talk to friends about how you might support yourself to reach them. This may not be an option because it may be financially too difficult, but certainly I've also had clients who have frozen their eggs, and that has felt a relief just to have been able to do something practical when they can't force themselves to find someone they want to have a child with or...
Right. But I think this question is a lot about comparing yourself to other people, like everyone else has it figured out. And like, I'm sure you do know this on a sort of logical level. Nobody has it figured out. They might just look to you like they do.
And that whole narrative around happy families and, getting married and having children, there are plenty of people who have ticked the boxes and are really deeply miserable.
I think the other thing I thought about is the struggle to know what you want.
Yeah.
Just in and of itself is a kind of task, isn't it? And maybe now it's not. I know for myself, there's been phases when I've just kind of known I don't know yet. I'm just not there yet. I don't know yet. I need to wait. And I sort of have some sort of trust that when a knowing will come, I'm like, yes, this is the thing. And that has been true for me often. But also, I remember...
Can I pause and put something in there? I love how she's so reluctant.
It's in the flow. It's in the flow.
Well, I just want to add that when I don't know something, I have a notebook that I keep with me and a notepad. And if I have a little thought, which I will lose, if I don't write it down, I write it down. And I go back to your flow. She said with a really succulent...
I mean it. Yeah. Good tip.
Okay.
I was saying that just this week I was talking to my husband about how when we first started going out, he was sort of going, but how do you know how you feel about anything?
Yeah. I sometimes
how
think
do you know how you feel? I don't have any signals really on the inside that tell me yes or no. I'd be like, no, you feel it in your body. It's like a gut instinct. It's like, I don't have that. I don't know what you're talking about. And I think he does have that now, but it is something that you sometimes need to cultivate. If you've not grown up in a family or a culture that has encouraged that kind of interoception, that kind of going inwards and noticing how you feel and what that means for you, then that's a place that might help to be curious and to and some level of trust that if it feels that way, then that's how I feel about it, even if that looks really different to what everyone else seems to be doing. Because we can sometimes undermine our instinct because we think it's not what other people would think or would disapprove of. Therapy can be helpful with that because it is, if therapy is an option to discover what you want, therapy is should be a very safe, non-judgmental space to be curious and work out what you feel. So that might also
and
be
also
part
maybe
of it.
work out like why some people do find decisions very hard, And that can be for all sorts of reasons, some of them being older than others. Like maybe lots of decisions were made for you for a very long time and you weren't given the agency to choose. So you sort of never really learned what you
To trust
wanted.
in yourself.
Yeah.
Or the process of knowing.
Yeah.
And so is part of your picture for yourself an expectation that's been imposed on you that actually at some level underneath you haven't wanted to meet? And so I'd be curious about that too. So I think that's all our thoughts. I hope something is useful for you. And again, thank you so much for asking your question.